IIT JEE అయినా NEET అయినా తిరుగులేని విద్యా సంస్థ NSR Impulse.
They are not eating food. If they eat, they are eating very less. So there is no proper development of immunity. There is no immunity. So people are most frequently and most commonly they keep on get affected by diseases. They get affected by different type of diseases because there is an increase in risk for diseases, right? And even it causes effect on mental ability. It causes even effect on mental ability. They may not remember things properly. There is no proper development of things here. They cannot do the work properly. Immunity goes down and energy levels will go down. As a result, most commonly the people will get affected by different sort of diseases, right? So because of these factors, especially children, even there is a loss of memory, especially in children's. Small kids, when they don't eat properly, when they don't get sufficient food, even there is a loss of memory. Now World Health Organization, it has been strictly instructed to most of the research organizations to change the food content. Instead of when they eat little quantity, from that they have to get high content of protein. If they get whatever the food, little food what they eat, from that they should get more amount of oil. From the adequate food, especially eating the varieties of these, they can get so much quantity of the nutrients. Eating less also, but still no problem. If they eat these varieties, sufficient quantity of the nutrients will be supplied to the people, especially who are suffering with hidden hunger and the people who are suffering with having little adequate food. ఓకే, న్యాచురల్గా మనకు అవైలబుల్ అయ్యే వెజిటేబుల్స్ని మనం మోడిఫై చేసి ఆ వెజిటేబుల్స్లో ఎక్కువ న్యూట్రియంట్స్ని ఇనాక్యులేట్ చేస్తే వాట్ ఎవర్ ఈస్ అవైలబుల్ పూర్ పీపుల్ విల్ ఈట్. Eating that little food, they'll get more amount of nutrients. That's the reason why people and research organizations started producing a nutrient enriched food. The food is to be enriched with various types of nutrients, right? So this is what exactly the scenario and the objectives for what is called biofortification. I hope you got the concept very clearly. I repeat, for the sake of the people who are suffering with adequate food, various research organizations are modifying the natural genes of the plant, producing different varieties which are having high content of nutrients, so that these things will be reduced. What are the things? There will be decrease in risk for diseases if they eat little food which is highly nutritionally, highly having good content of nutrients. Then it will not cause effect on mental ability nor the loss of memory. So this is nothing but the concept of biofortification. Now let us continue with a concept which is nothing but a single cell protein. In short form generally we write SCP. What is SCP? Single cell protein. Now what did you understand just a minute back? Biofortification. What's meant by biofortification? The food what is produced across the world was not sufficient to feed the world population. So we are trying to search the methods to increase the food production. And also in available plants we are trying to produce more amount of nutrients, right? So when population is increasing, when the food is not sufficient, then people are trying to find different sources of food. So you know very well, as food was not sufficient, even Germany people, Japan people, Chinese people have started eating whatever is available, right? Birds, insects, frogs, crocodiles, whatever is available, they started eating everything, right? But here if you look at the scenario very clearly here, at lastly we have come down to the stage, even we are not even leaving algae, right? Algae, you know it very well, it grows like wherever moisture content is there, we find algae is growing. Algae is not that infectious like fungi and bacteria. Very few algal members are highly infectious and few algal members are highly nutritious. They may be tiny invisible organisms. Algae may be tiny invisible organisms, but still they have high content of nutrients. That is the reason why. So you know, all of you, algae is nothing but unicellular. Algal members are unicellular. That means they contain only single cell, but still they have high content of protein. Okay, so if you look at this single cell protein, what are the from which organisms we get a single cell protein? So let me give you another table. Let us take the examples of organism which we can take as a food which has high content of protein. So let us write the examples of bacteria, and also we can make the list of examples for fungi, and also apart from this we can also make the list of algal members. So here if you look at, so let us talk about examples of bacteria. We can say Methylophilus, methylated bacteria. What's the meaning of methylophilus? Methylated bacteria. What's the meaning of that? Methylophilus means for the survivability of the bacteria it needs methyl group, and wherever it grows there it produces more amount of methane. Methane is a good source of energy, you know it very well, highly nutritious, you can make it out, right? So apart from this, even you can take and Brevibacterium. Brevibacterium, it's also good source of proteins and good source of energy, and these two examples you can remember for bacteria. Coming to fungi, what not, you know, you are very much familiar with Saccharomyces cerevisiae. Most common examples, all of you know very well. What is that? Yeast, right? Apart from this, even you know that what we have fungi, even Chaetomium, right? And also Candida utilitis, right? So these are nothing but examples for fungi. Now coming to algae, the most commonly used one is Spirulina, and along with that Chlorella, and also you can remember examples like Cnidesmus. So for all, if you observe carefully in the video, I kept star marks, means you have to remember all these examples are very, very important. So what is the thing which you have to understand? Guys, you already know about Chlorella, because in the plant kingdom you studied about algae, economic importance of algae, where Chlorella is most commonly used as a food by space travelers. Did you remember? Chlorella is most commonly used food for space travelers, right? And Spirulina, Cnidesmus are the most commonly used algal members which are highly nutritious in getting high amount of protein, and they very much play important role in human metabolism. Now, so what is the need for us to take algae as a food? What is the need? So here if you look at the introduction part, here we say that by feeding, what we say, some 3 to 10 kg of grains. When you feed the animals 3 to 10 kg of grains, hardly from the animals we get 1 kg of meat. Right, from the animals, flesh or meat if you take, if you keep on supply 3 to 10 kg of grains as a food, an animal can give us hardly 1 kg of meat. Right. Similarly, if you take the comparison, 250 kg of cow, very big cow if you look at, you keep on give them the greens and you feed them with rice and all, grass and all that. Even though you feed so much the cow gives the milk. In that milk hardly we find only 200 grams of milk, 200 grams of proteins. If you feed so much the cow, no doubt cow gives more quantity of the milk, no doubt, but the milk contains only hardly 200 grams of proteins. That means see the intake and see the outtake. Intake is more, you keep on giving grains, grass and everything, but outtake is very, very less, right? But the same thing if you look at the scenario, now this is very, very important. That means if you take 250 grams of microorganisms, When you culture them in the lab, they produces 25 tons of protein. See the difference? See such a big animals which are very macro in size, how much we are feeding also, what we are getting is very, very less. But see the invisible microorganism, they are tiny, microscopic, not visible to the naked eye, but see the wonderful thing what they are giving to us. Hardly 250 grams, means very, very less, a little quantity of the microorganisms if you take, and if you culture them in the lab, within fraction of seconds they multiply, they grow in number, and they are produce a large quantity of the food which contain large quantity of protein. See, look at 250 grams where 250 kg of cow where, okay, hardly little bit of microorganisms, huge quantity of the proteins are getting produced. Okay, don't ever come to the conclusion, so instead of rearing cows, better to have the rearing of microorganisms. Don't get to that conclusion. But cows are also very important in getting huge like nutrients, and traditionally cow is also very, very important in agriculture, right? But microorganisms here which is present at the tip of the plant, apical bud. Apical bud always in the process called cell division. It keep dividing and produce new cells, and 2 cells will become 4 cells. So it plays a very important role in growth. Yes or no? So when cells are metabolically, they are highly active. Meristematic cells. Apical bud contains what here? Here it contains what? Meristematic cells. All of you know very well this. I hope it is clear here. Right? All of you know that apical bud contains what? Meristematic cells. Meristematic cells are highly active in taking more nutrients, and they keep on involved in the process called cell division. So as cells are highly active here, as they are more strength in taking more nutrients here, virus was unable to spread into meristematic cells. That means scientists have discovered the wonderful thing that even though the parent plant is fully affected with the virus, but they found that apical bud having meristematic cells, axillary bud having meristematic cells, they found that they are free of virus. I hope you got it. Again I repeat, apical meristem and axillary meristem are free of virus in parent plant. Means even the full plant got affected, but apical bud and axillary bud, even though they are, whole plant even though it's fully affected, apical bud and axillary bud, they are free of virus. Collecting the apical bud, collecting the axillary bud, using that you can produce the young plant which is free of virus. Such a good and great discovery. So there is a formation of healthy plant from the diseased plant. The same technique, guys, initially what they have done research on plants. When they are succeed in producing the plant free of virus, that is the basis for application of the same method into human beings. So nowadays you know very well that even though mother got affected, in human beings also, when mother is affected with so and so a chronic disease or some disease is there, but we can protect the fetus from the mother. Fetus will be free of the disease. Nowadays techniques are being employed to safeguard the fetus, embryo to fetus formation. They will take so many measures and so many precautions so that even though mother is affected, but we can get the young baby which is free of infection, who is free of disease. So these are a very good wild applications. Again I am telling you, very good applications we will discuss more in the part of genetics. Right. Now apart from this, right. Let's continue. Apart from these applications, let us even discuss about other applications. So I am giving 1, 2, 3. One is what? First one is micropropagation. Second is formation of healthy plant from diseased plant. Another third application we can discuss here about somatic hybridization. What is somatic hybridization? So here we say the somatic cells are hybridized. Somatic cell, nothing but vegetative cell, which we can collect from the plant. Any part of the plant, somatic cell, vegetative cell can be collected. Hybridization means what? Fusion, combining the two. In hybridization what we do? There is a combination of two parents or two plants or the two cells. Right. As a result, the young offspring what is produced will be having the combination of both the parents. Now how it is employed, hybridization in terms of somatic cells? Let us see now. That is what we call somatic hybridization. Here initially what they have taken is, earlier it is possible when two plants have the same genus, maybe they are different in species, but it is possible to fuse them. Right. So here experimentally scientists have taken potato and tomato. Okay. So from the potato plant they collected a cell. Right. From the potato plant they collected a cell. And from the tomato plant also they collected a cell. Let's continue the topic. So we have discussed just now calogenesis. What is calogenesis? The formation of callus, it's called calogenesis. Genesis means synthesis. Synthesis of callus, it's called calogenesis. Undifferentiated mass of cells, slowly they differentiate and looks like an embryo. The embryos which are produced here are called somatic embryos. Callus slowly get differentiated and forms embryo-like structures. That's what's called somatic embryos. The formation of somatic embryos is called embryogenesis. Genesis means synthesis. Synthesis of embryos. It's called embryogenesis. Then after the formation of embryos, just now we studied with the addition of auxin and cytokinin. What is A here? Auxin and cytokinin. With the addition of auxin and cytokinin, slowly there is a differentiation into organs. The formation of root, a small root, some part of the stem is a little differentiation of formation of organs. When it is appeared, then the process is said to be organogenesis. Morphologically, the callus is differentiated with the formation of organs. So it's also called morphogenesis. I repeat the last one again. Formation of organs is called organogenesis or morphogenesis. Right. So I hope you understood up to here. Callus to embryo, embryo to organs. Now this organs, now slowly there will be formation of what we call, slowly there will be formation of root, and slowly there is a formation of the shoot, leaves, and finally get produced with what is called as a small young plantlet. What get produced here? A small young plantlet. So here in the test tube, so here is the callus. Now slowly it got differentiated with the formation of the roots, and slowly a small plant is rising, but still it is kept inside the test tube, and within that what is found? Nutrient solution. So we find what is called nutrient media or nutrient medium. Okay, so using these nutrients, the small young plantlet is growing. So that young plantlet, where it is produced? Within the lab. Within the lab, under what conditions? Under controlled conditions. Controlled conditions means what? In vitro, right? A temperature is maintained, a humidity is maintained, right? And pressure is maintained. Along with that, time is regulated with the addition of all that. So here even pH is also maintained. So here, based upon the time intervals, for every short span of time, there is a change of temperature, there will be change of humidity, and there will be change of pressure. They keep on adjust the pH, temperature and pressure, moisture content sufficient for the young plantlet to develop from small explant. So this is happening where within the lab. Now in the next step, when young plantlet successfully produced here, then the next step what we go, it's called as acclimatization. It's called acclimatization. What is acclimatization here? It's nothing but process of making the plant to get adjust to surrounding environment. Better you can write here, surrounding environment. What's the meaning of this? So we are employing some process, the process of making the plant to get adjust to surrounding environment. So just now I told you young plantlet is produced within the test tube, and this plant slowly we have to make the plant to get adjusted to surrounding environment. When you make the young plant to get adjusted to surrounding environment, the process is said to be as what? Acclimatization. So what we do generally here, so here this is in lab. So in the lab, the test tube has the small tiny young baby plant. So what you find here, with the proper development of root and all that. So here the test tube, what you find here, within the lab we change the conditions. Earlier it may be some minus degrees temperature. Now slowly you rise the temperature for 10 degrees. And you will keep the plant for 2 to 3 days. Then slow rise of temperature. Slow rise of temperature. Right. So after 3 days, again you are making the temperature as 15 degrees. Again you are keeping for 2 to 3 days. Then slowly into 18 degrees, 20 degrees, 23 degrees, 25 degrees, and slowly you have to bring it into 28 degrees. Generally room temperature in our surrounding environment, if you take, generally room temperature will be 23 to 25 or 25 to 28 degrees maximum. Slowly you have to rise the temperature, make the plant to get adjusted. Accordingly, humidity, pressure and pH also will be frequently get altered, modified, and slowly what we will do, after we adjust the room temperature within the lab, then slowly there will be exposure to, slowly will make exposure to sunlight. Slowly will make exposure to sunlight. So what we do in this case? In this case, what we do here is, so make slowly, when plant is ready here, it's keep growing here. Now here, what we do here is, slowly you are exposing, you are keeping the plant in the shade within the corridor. Right, slowly we are making the plant to take it into outside environment. Outside means here, out of lab. We are slowly getting it out of lab. Outside we are making the plant. We are keeping in the corridor under the shade so that it get exposed to very small intensity of light. It will get exposed to very small intensity of light. Then after 1 week, again slowly you get exposed directly to sunlight. After a week, you are making the plant getting exposure to sunlight, so that naturally the plant get exposed to sunlight. Then the plant grow adapted here to all environmental conditions. The plant will grow successfully. We are making the plant to get adjusted with the surrounding environment. That process what we call it as acclimatization. Now the plant what we created in the test tube, now it's adjusted to the surrounding environment, growing comfortably in the environment. Then slowly we shift from the test tube into a small pot, and from there we provide all the nutrients again to the soil. Soil will be enriched with the nutrients, and plant will grow as a natural plant, and definitely it will give to the beneficial extent of yield on all other desirable characters. So this is what is called as tissue culture. So I hope you all understood tissue culture. First step is preparation of nutrient media. We have to prepare nutrient media. Second step is sterilization, means we have to kill all the pathogens, hygienic one, right? And after that we have to keep explant into that. And the fourth one is incubation. Let explant to take all the nutrients to form the callus, callus to embryo, then into organs. Then we find 3 stages of processes like calogenesis, embryogenesis and morphogenesis. Then slowly there will be formation of all the organs of the plant, and finally you can see beautiful young plantlet is coming out of the test tube. Everything was done in the lab under controlled condition, under human supervision. So slowly, next step what we are going to do is acclimatization. Slowly you are making the plant with the rise of temperature in the lab, with the rise of intensity of the sunlight, and slowly we are keeping and getting the plant outside the lab and making it to get adjusted naturally to the environment. And finally we are successful in producing a whole plant from a single cell, from one cell which is collected from any part of the plant, that's called explant, and finally we made the plant to get produced. And this total process is called as what? Tissue culture. Nowadays in genetic engineering, the most employed technique of producing plant is called tissue culture. Even you know that best example, endemic animals, endangered animals, you know that even Tiger Project, previously when Manmohan Singh was the Prime Minister, we all know that he given instructions to start Tiger Project, right? What is Tiger Project? A number of tigers were very few, and it's getting extincted. It's going to get extinct. Now very few number is there. So what we are doing? We are collecting the stem cells. We are collecting the stem cells from the tiger, and we are preserving in the lab. So that in future, if the tigers are getting totally extincted also, no problem. Again we can create, using that one cell which is collected from the tiger. Now again we can create the tiger. We can produce the young offsprings of tiger. Right. Nowadays it's very common technique, you know, the stem cell technology. I think guys, you might be known very well that even in hospitals, nowadays they are collecting stem cells. When a young baby is born, immediately they are collecting the stem cells. Why they are collecting stem cells from the young born new fetus or new baby? Why they are collecting? In future, if any damage happens by accident or by any part got affected or any part got damaged, to repair the damaged part of the human body, they'll make use of the stem cells which are preserved, which are collected from the young baby. In future, anything happens, with the help of stem cells, we can produce the part of the human body, so that widely used in the repair and recovery of damaged parts. Right, so very good technology, most wonderful technology. Most of you are aware of it. What is that called? Stem cell technology. That's purely on the basis of total process of tissue culture. In tissue culture, in our subject, we are talking about a plant. But that is practically applications if you take, that is employed for endangered endemic species we can produce, and human beings are produced. Even the greatest human genome project, all of you know it very well. What is that? You can produce, I am the human being. From that one cell is collected. So you can produce exactly a copy of human being who looks like me. Yes or no? That's a great project. You can produce a human being who is exactly similar to that of the copy, right? So using a single cell, you can produce the complete human being. Then you know, I think the project got abandoned. The world greatest, largest project is Human Genome Project. You know, that got abandoned. Why it is abandoned? Why? Because rather than the advantages, there are many disadvantages. So if I create a duplicate copy of my own human body on my name, they can go and do robbery to the bank. So people can't identify whether I have done the robbery, a original one, or the newly created duplicate one has done the robbery. So there are so many wonderful applications are there in genetic engineering. We will discuss all very good awesome examples as an applications of genetics when we have the chapter of genetics. So we have wonderful examples. So everything is interrelated. What we are going to discuss in genetics, what we study in tissue culture, all are nothing but the basic steps employed in genetic engineering. Now let us continue with some of the applications. Let us continue with some of the applications. Apart from the applications what I told you, let us see other applications. Very important application is nothing but micropropagation. Micropropagation. What is micropropagation here? Here the process of production of large number of plants in limited space and time. What's the meaning of this? In very short space, in very short duration of time, in very less space, we are producing what? Large number of plants. As I told you for the last class, guys, what we are doing, suppose if you take 100 square feet of the land or 1000 square feet of the land, let us imagine if there are 100 plants, and each plant, earlier it is producing only 1 kg. Now with the tissue culture, you made the efficiency of the plant to produce more yield. So here what's happening? The same space, it's just very small space. So what is the yield you will get? So here you will get only 100 kg. Right, but with the application of tissue culture, what we are doing? We are making the same plant to produce 5 kg. 100 plants are there. Each plant produce 5 kg. That means you are getting 500 kg. That means in the small space, you are cultivating large number of plants. You are getting high yield or large yield. We are getting it in the same space. Space is not changed. Earlier same 1000 square feet or 100 square feet. Now also is the same area. Area is same, very small space, right, but yield got increased. So we say large number of plants are produced in limited space and in very short duration of time. Guys, it's most common application. I think you know nowadays Germany, China, Japan and in other foreign countries, you know, they'll take one room, a completely closed 4-corner room, and they'll make some shelves here, and within the room they'll cultivate rice, wheat and so many plants. So what they do, they'll take the room and they'll make different shelves here and they'll try to cultivate different plants. In the very small space, in limited space, they cultivate different plants and they get the complete yield. Large number of plants in limited space in very short duration of time. If you produce the yield, it's called micropropagation. In agriculture, the most employed technique nowadays, what people are following across the world is micropropagation. In short time, you can produce more yield in limited space. It's called micropropagation. Now another application is, I'm talking about the other application, formation of a healthy plant from a diseased plant. Diseased means you can write infected plant. Either you can write diseased or you can write infected plant. So here formation of a healthy plant from diseased plant or infected plant. What's the meaning of this? Let us take it. Let us imagine the whole plant got affected. Means it got affected with virus. So let us take this is the virus infected plant. Okay, this is fully affected with virus. Now we take this virus infected plant. What do you do if you take the cell from this virus infected plant? Automatically the young plant also will get affected by virus. But there is a wonderful thing what people have achieved it. They are successful in producing the young plant. The young plant what they produced here, that is free of virus. So let us take this as a mother plant or the parent plant. Let us take this as parent plant and this is the young plant. Okay, they were successful in producing the young plant, taking the cell from this which is highly infected with virus. How it is possible? So simply they have taken the method called as meristem culture. In meristem culture, what they have taken? They have taken apical meristem and axillary meristem axillary meristem. They found that they are free of virus in parent plant. They are free of virus in parent plant. What's the meaning of this? Whole plant got affected, no doubt. But they observe in the apical bud. Apical bud means what? Is a bud. Now let us continue with the concept of tissue culture. In the very introduction class, we discussed that new techniques are employed to increase the food protection. What are the new techniques? We said genetic engineering, tissue culture, recombinant DNA. So one of the very important method which enhances the food production is nothing but what? Tissue culture. So what is tissue culture here? It's nothing but the formation of the plant. The formation of a whole plant from a single cell. So this single cell, which we also call it as a stem cell. What is stem cell? Stem cell, I have mentioned it as a single cell, meaning one cell. What is that we are doing it? From plant, from any part of the plant, we are collecting a single cell. From one cell we are collecting, and this one cell we are putting into the test tube. The one cell what is collected here, it's called a stem cell. Right. Using this one cell, now we are producing the whole one plant. That is nothing but such a wonderful process. It's made it possible by the method called as tissue culture. In tissue culture, what's the main thing? Formation of whole plant from single cell or stem cell. Now here if you look at, so the single cell what is collected here itself, it's called as explant. Right? Any explant is collected from where? Collected from any part of the plant. Explant, it's been collected from any part of the plant. It's collected from any part of the plant. That's why it's called as explant. Then the explant has, this particular plant, this particular cell has ability to produce totipotency. What is totipotency? Ability to produce the whole plant. Ability to produce the whole plant. That means the single cell has ability to produce the whole plant. When single cell has ability to produce the whole plant, the process is said to be as what? Totipotency. Guys, no confusion here. Small cell what we are taking, it's called explant. Now explant has the ability to produce. Now when explant has the ability, it is said to be totipotency. And finally what we are producing is called whole plant by the method called as what? Tissue culture. Simply producing the whole plant, it's called totipotency. But it includes lot many steps. The total mechanism is called tissue culture. Right. Now let us begin with the process of tissue culture. The very first step in this is called preparation of nutrient media. Preparation of nutrient media. First of all, we have to prepare nutrient medium. How it is prepared here? We have to take test tube. A sterilized test tube we have to take. Now into this test tube we have to add nutrients. What are the nutrients should be added here? The nutrient should be the source of carbon and energy. So here sucrose, you have to write better you write down sucrose. Sucrose what is added here? This act as a source of carbon and energy. So if I write source here, again you will get the component here. Better you write sucrose. Sucrose is acting as a source of carbon and energy. Along with that, even it's been added in organic salts, vitamins, minerals, microminerals as well as the macrominerals. So these all are the components which are added. So here if you look at here, even very importantly I am writing here, very importantly also to be added plant growth regulators. Also to be added what? Plant growth regulators. Which plant growth regulators? For example, we can say auxins as well as gibberellins. Guys, in lower classes you might have studied that some of the chemicals which are produced internally within the plant are responsible and they play a very important role in growth mechanism. The internal chemicals which are produced inside the plant, you have so many examples like auxins, gibberellins, cytokinins, right, and even abscisic acid. There are so many examples are there, but the ones which plays an important role are nothing but auxins, gibberellins and cytokinins, along with the plant growth regulators. Even we are adding sucrose, inorganic salts, vitamins and microminerals. All nutrients should be added into the test tube. Now the test tube which is having all the nutrients itself is called as what? Nutrient media. Right. Now when we prepare the nutrient media, the pH should be adjusted between 5 to 6. 5 to 6 means not completely acidic here. It may be somewhat stabilized and we bring it to the status of neutral. So 7 is the neutral, right? We are somewhat near to the neutral condition. So when we add all the nutrients, suppose what happens if you leave the test tube with nutrients, if you keep it aside and if you go home or if you are doing some other work and engaging in doing some other work, you know it very well what happens, already nutrients are more. Then it may act as a source of growth of many microorganisms. Pathogens will start growing. So to avoid that, immediately we have to go for the second step. What is the second step we have? Sterilization. Sterilization of nutrient media. Sterilization of nutrient media. So once test tube is fully filled with nutrients, we have the solution with high amount of nutrients, then immediately we have to go for sterilization. So what is sterilization? It's nothing but a process of killing or destroying pathogens or you can write infection causing organisms. Okay, what is sterilization? The process of, here you can write the process of destroying pathogens. What are pathogens? Infection causing organisms. How do we do that sterilization? It is done with the help of an instrument called autoclave. So what is an autoclave? It's an instrument used for sterilization. So it's like a very big container. It will be like very big container. Now in that we have like places there. In different places you can give different lab equipments. Test tube you can keep, or some other bowls, culture plates you can keep, or inoculating needles you can keep, which are widely used in the research lab. Whatever the components you use it in the research lab, before that we need to completely sterilize them. So all the things which we use it in the lab, keep it in the instrument name called autoclave. Now in autoclave it is measured with 121 degrees temperature. Very high temperature is applied with 15 lb pounds of pressure, and this need to rotate for the time of 15 minutes. So you have to keep all the apparatus, glassware and all the apparatus, put it in the instrument called autoclave, just close the lid, and it is applied with highest temperature of 121 degrees and pressure is applied 15, and you need to keep it for 15 minutes. So that kills and destroys all the pathogens. Now the nutrient media what is produced and kept here, it is free of, now it will become free of pathogens. So you have to make sure that there are no infection causing organisms in the nutrient media. Right. So after you take the nutrient media out, it should be flecked with the cotton. Now it is ready. Generally, if you see tissue culture, I think lower classes you studied, a test tube you find here nutrient solution, nutrient media, NM means nutrient media, and that is tightly flagged with cotton lid. Right, now nutrient media is ready. Now what is the next step to go? We have to collect the explant, or we can go for inoculation of explant. We have to go for inoculation of explant. So in the beginning itself we studied what is an explant. From any part of the plant we are collecting a single cell. The single cell itself is called as what? Explant. So what do we do now? From any part we have collected the cell. Simply you can take inoculation loop. So this is the inoculation loop. With that, whatever culture plate is having a single cell, this is called as explant. Like that, so many different cells we collected. Any one of the cell we select it, we take it with the help of inoculation loop. With the help of inoculation loop, we collect any one of the cell and we get it transferred into the test tube containing nutrient media. So what are the things are present here? Nutrient media is there. Now what we added into this is nothing but explant. So that process is called as what? Inoculation of explant. I hope it is very clear. First step is preparation of nutrient medium. Second step is sterilization of nutrient media. Third one is adding explantation to nutrient media, that is inoculation of explant. Right. So lastly what we have discussed, inoculation of explant. So once inoculation of explant is done, here you can see the cell, nutrient media is there. Now when all the nutrients are available, explant will start making use of all the nutrients which are present here, and using the nutrients, explant will start undergoing the process called as cell division. Okay, so the single cell, by using the nutrients, it start undergoing dividing. One cell will become two cells will become four cells, like that. Here you can see undifferentiated mass of cells are produced. It's called callus. One cell will divide and produce many cells and form a bunch of cells. Itself is called as what? Callus. So how can we define callus? Callus is referred as undifferentiated mass of cells. What is a callus? Callus is referred as undifferentiated mass of cells. In this you cannot differentiate which cell goes for what part or which cell makes the formation of what part. We cannot differentiate anything. So it forms what? Undifferentiated mass of cells is referred as callus. Now slowly when incubation is there here, this is kept in incubator for nearly 72 hours. So after that you can see callus formation is there. The formation of callus is called as collagenesis. Formation of callus is called as collagenesis. In 72 hours period of time, all the nutrients are utilized by the explant and explant converted into callus. Formation of callus is called as collagenesis. Now this is the time where we add what we add for the, we need to add plant growth regulator. So again I am just drawing, callus is there. Now we need to add plant growth hormones. Plant growth hormones. Which are the plant growth hormones? Auxins and cytokinin. But try to remember importantly, when we add, suppose if we add high auxin and low concentration of cytokinin, then that leads to root formation. Very important. So what are the two important plant growth hormones we are adding? One is auxin, other one is cytokinin. They promote the growth, they make the plant to grow. So what are they? Auxin and cytokinin. But when we add the concentration of high concentration of auxin in combination with low concentration of cytokinin, there will be initiation of roots. Slowly from this callus you can see small roots are producing. Right, after certain period of time in the incubation, then followed by we are adding, we will make the concentration of auxin low and will make the concentration of cytokinin more. So we add low concentration of auxin with high concentration of cytokinin. Then what happens? This combination leads to shoot formation. Importantly, you have to remember. I repeat again, high concentration with low cytokinin initiates the root, and low concentration of auxin with the high concentration of cytokinin initiates the shoot. So here slowly there will be the formation of shoot. Now this is somewhat appears like an embryo. Embryo is trying to differentiate to form the different organs like root and shoot. Such kind of embryo, what is produced here, it's called as somatic embryo, or they are called as embryoids. So callus is forming the embryo. When all organs are trying to differentiate, then it looks like embryo. Why do you call embryoid? Then why do you call somatic embryo? Means it looks like a natural embryo, but it's not a natural embryo. Right? So it looks like the shape of an embryo. That is the reason why it's called somatic embryo. It looks like more of the plant natural embryo. That's why it's called somatic. Somatic means similar somewhat. Right? Somatic embryo, or they are called embryoids. Now when this slowly getting differentiated with the proportionate concentration addition of auxin and cytokinin, slowly organs are started producing, then this process is called as organogenesis. Organogenesis. What is organogenesis? Genesis means synthesis. Synthesis of what? Organs. Which organs are produced here? Slowly there is a formation of root. Slowly there is a formation of shoot. So when there is a slow formation of root and shoot is there, that is called organogenesis. On this, Oma. Okay. So here 250 grams of microorganisms, they produce 25 tons of proteins. So these microorganisms, so here most of the microorganisms, they are unicellular. From unicellular single cell microorganisms, we are getting huge quantity of the protein. So we started eating even microorganisms. Human beings, just see the status where they have come down. They are not only eating whatever is available on earth, even they are trying to eat even what is invisible also, they are trying to catch hold of that and they are eating that, right. So here single cell protein is a good example. Most common ones are this, and in this most commonly one which is highly nutritious, most commonly used algae is nothing but spirulina. Why spirulina? It's very easy to grow, it's very easy to cultivate. Why? Because if you take the sources from where we get spirulina, you can take examples like a potato processing units, and apart from this, even from the molasses. You know molasses, bagasse, the sugar cane, after we extract the sugar from sugar cane, whatever the pulp is there, that's called bagasse. Bagasse is used for preparation of alcohols. That process is called as what? Molasses, right? And apart from this, even in wastewater, right, and apart from this, many industrial effluents. Okay, so these are the places where you can find most commonly the growth of spirulina. So guys, don't imagine that, don't think that ma'am is telling one side spirulina has a very good source of protein. One side where it is growing means it's written as industrial effluent, wastewater and processing unit. So what's happening here, right? So don't ever imagine that we are collecting industrial effluent and from that we are taking spirulina and eating. No. Okay, these are the places where spirulina grows. Of course, it's waste only. Industrial waste is a place where spirulina grow. Wastewater is the place where the places spirulina grow. So, you don't come to the conclusion or imagination from the wastewater taking the spirulina, putting on the plate and eating. No. Okay, spirulina is highly nutritious. Then what we have to do? From the wastewater, cultures of the spirulina is collected and kept in the lab. We provide nutrients. We make the spirulina to multiply in number. We purify and remove all the waste materials from the culture, and we make the pure spirulina out. Okay, I hope you are getting it. From the wastewater, if I collect the cultures of spirulina, I'll purify it. I'll remove all the effluents. I'll remove all the waste materials. I'll take pure spirulina out. That pure spirulina, I'll keep it in the culture plate. I'll make spirulina to multiply in number. So spirulina will multiply and grow more in number, and this spirulina has a good source. It is acting as a very good source of protein. So this spirulina will have more amount, not only the high content of protein, it also has good quantity of the carbohydrates and very little fat. Very trace amount of the fat. It's a very good source of protein. Along with that we find carbohydrates, a healthy carbohydrates, and also very trace quantity of the fat. So here if you look at in foreign countries, they already started consuming spirulina capsules, spirulina syrups, right? Why? It contains only protein. So what is the major why people started taking much of spirulina capsules and other things? Because in foreign countries, you know, people are suffering with obesity, overweight and many metabolic disorders, right? So when people consume the spirulina having high protein content, so what is needed for human metabolism is supplied, proteins are supplied, and moreover the advantage is it suppresses the hunger. It suppresses the hunger, right, and also most commonly plays an important role in reducing the overweight, and also it plays an important role in the treatment of diabetes. So people will not feel hungry to eat the food. Okay, once they take the spirulina, it kills the hungerness. So people will not feel hungry to take the food. They will not take the food. So weight will come down, and also widely used even in the treatment of diabetes. So that's the most wonderful concept. What we have is nothing but what? Single cell protein. Even unicellular organisms are also consumed as a food. Even nowadays, you know, even fungi, if you take, even mushrooms are also highly nutritional. And you know, very few people will make the habit of taking mushrooms, but this is also highly nutritional, right? So this is about single cell protein. Unicellular organisms are also acting as a source of good source of nutritionally enriched good source of food materials. This is nothing but single cell protein.